Thanks, Andrea. Today marks the birthday of Dr. Coretta Scott King. I'm told she would have been 91 years old. Yeah, she was most known as the wife of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but few people knew that she was an accomplished activist, academic, singer, and many other things in her own right.
Veteran journalist Dr. Barbara Reynolds is here. She's a close friend and mentee of Mrs. King. She's written a book to share her memories of this amazing woman. Welcome to Great Day.
Well, it is a great day.
It is. Happy birthday to Dr. King.
And what's so interesting is that we celebrate Dr. King, as we should, but we don't celebrate her, and we should, because she was the co-partner in one of the greatest human rights struggles in modern history. So I'm glad that now people are saying, wait a minute, we have only half the story until we get her half, because she was with him for 13 years, and she ran the movement, a nonviolent movement, for 39 years after he was gone.
Now, she was the one who helped found the King Center. She was the one who pushed for the national holiday. What do people need to know
They
about
need
her?
to know that the holiday did not just happen. She worked for 15 years to make it happen. Wow. She called on every senator that would receive her. She organized 5 million signatures. She had Stevie Wonder and people to do this, and she organized holidays across the parties across the country. So she worked. Her only agenda was to institutionalize and internationalize his legacy. That's why you can see the statue on the mall. And that's why when we celebrate the holiday, we have to celebrate the woman who was the one person who really worked hard every day to get it done.
What did she say to you after Dr. King's assassination?
Well, she said that she had to remember she was still a parent. She had 4 children, and she would tell me how she would have to get up in the morning because, you know, I was there about a few years after the assassination, and she said she'd get up and his shoes were still on the rack, and she could see the mud on his shoes where he marched. Even in the bed, there was an impression still there, and she had to walk all past that, put her makeup on. She was always elegantly dressed. Yeah. And then when she would say a prayer, she'd put a smile on her face and open the door and say good morning. But it was an effort because this was the love of her life. Yeah. This was the man she thought she would be with the rest of her life. But they knew that he would be murdered because he was trying to make a difference in our society.
Well, Dr. King talked about, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about not being afraid of death. He almost could see it coming. And we all remember that picture of Coretta Scott King at the funeral, just a stoic widow. What did she tell you about the days after the assassination?
It was strange because she did not fall apart publicly. And she would tell me, she said, Barbara, you know, I'm stronger in a crisis. Because you have to understand, she was born in a time when she was a child, her home was burned down. You know, there were still lynchings were still legal. So she grew up in a state of terrorism. So this was a great terrorist time, but she had to understand how to walk through it. And she, 3 days after Dr. King was assassinated, she went back to Memphis, and she went back there and led the march that he was leading in behalf of striking garbage men. So, I mean, I tell you, I've never met a woman as courageous as Coretta Scott King.
Well, and another woman, another strong woman that we lost this year, Winnie Mandela, she asked you to write her biography, but you turned her down.
Well,
why?
I remember that meeting. We were in Williamsburg because she had given a lecture. And so she said, I want to see you after the lecture. So I went up to her hotel room, and she was elegantly dressed, you know, at the reception. But in the hotel room, I happened to look down at her feet, and she had on combat boots. and it struck in my mind, Barbara, you're looking at a female warrior. Do you know enough about that to deal with it? And I came up in King's nonviolent movement, but I remembered that maybe there are other things that she would do. Maybe I don't want to go down that line. So I said, no, I don't think I'll do the book. But a couple months later, she sent me a statue that's autographed. I turned it down, but she still.
She came from a
She
place
came
of
from a
gratitude.
place
Move
of
this so you
gratitude.
can see the beautiful statue.
Wow.
So.
Wow. You've had an amazing life. The news industry for female journalists is a very lonely, tough industry because you don't have people who mirror you at the top most times. You know, people of color and women. But you've done a lot. You've interviewed many, many presidents of the United States and iconic people. What did you learn from that, especially in this day and age where the national conversation seems to be around women's empowerment and not taking things silently anymore?
I'm so happy, and Coretta Scott King would be thrilled that we can look, when we look at an audience like this and see so many young faces, and we can see how they will be able to live their best lives, and that I see hope rising. Because I see women standing up for themselves. I see them not going to be treated as objects. And see, change begins in here. And when you know who you are, you know that you can make it, and you don't have to be a label or an object. I see hope rising, and I think she really would too.
I love that. Dr. Barbara
Beautiful.
Reynolds, we could talk to you all morning.
All
You are
day.
incredible. Thank you for being here, sharing the stories in my life, my love, my legacy of Dr. Coretta Scott King.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back.